Chapter 1. The maid who refused to look away. Stone halls of Thornmere Estate smelled of decay and neglect, and Elena Voss had learned to breathe through her mouth. She arrived on a Tuesday, ash-pale and desperate, carrying nothing but a canvas bag and a letter of reference forged by a friend who pitied her more than she trusted her. The housekeeper, Mrs. Calloway, had barely glanced at the paper before handing Elena a ring of iron keys and a list of rules typed on yellowed parchment. Do not enter the West Wing after sunset. Do not ask questions about the master. Do not, under any circumstances, go near the child's room without explicit permission. Elena had nodded, her fingers tight around the keys. She needed this position. Her name had been ruined 6 months ago when her fiancé's family accused her of theft to cover their own sins. No respectable house in London would hire her. Thornmere, isolated and strange, was her last chance. The estate loomed against the Yorkshire moors like a broken tooth. Its windows were shuttered, its gardens choked with thorns. Inside, silence pressed against her ears. The few servants who remained moved like ghosts, eyes down, mouths shut. They did not speak to her. They did not speak to each other. On her third night, Elena heard the crying. It came from the forbidden West Wing, a child's voice, high and thin, cracking with pain. She stood in the corridor, her candle trembling in her hand, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But the sound clawed at something deep in her chest, something that remembered what it was to be alone and hurting. She climbed the stairs. The door at the end of the hall was heavy oak, its surface carved with symbols she didn't recognize. The crying had stopped. Elena pressed her palm against the wood, heart hammering, and pushed. The room beyond was a nightmare dressed as a nursery. Heavy curtains blocked the windows. The air was thick and stale, tinged with something metallic. In the center of the room stood a canopied bed, and in that bed lay a boy no older than 8. His skin was translucent, blue veins stark beneath the surface. His hair, black as ink, clung to his damp forehead. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath, told, too knowing, ringed with shadows that spoke of suffering no child should know. You shouldn't be here, the boy whispered. His voice was hoarse, as if he'd screamed himself raw. He'll be angry. Elena stepped closer, her nursing instincts overriding her fear. She had worked in a hospital before her fall from grace. She knew a dying child when she saw one. I heard you crying, she said softly, setting her candle on the nightstand. Are you in pain? The boy's laugh was bitter, ancient. Always. She reached for his wrist to check his pulse, and froze. His skin was ice cold. Beneath her fingers, his heartbeat was slow, far too slow. 3 beats, then nothing. 3 beats, then nothing. What's wrong with you? The question escaped before she could stop it. I'm cursed, the boy said simply. Dying, but not allowed to die. Suffering, but not allowed to end it. My father made sure of that. Elena's throat tightened. Your father did this to you? Not intentionally. The boy's eyes drifted to the ceiling. He tried to save me. But vampire children were not meant to exist. The transition is too violent. Our bodies can't hold the hunger. I've been trapped like this for 63 years. The room tilted. Elena gripped the bedpost, her mind racing. Vampires. The word tasted like ash, like fairy tales told to frighten children. But the evidence lay before her. The too slow heartbeat, the translucent skin, the ancient sorrow in a child's face. 63 years. She breathed. My father keeps me hidden. The other houses would destroy me if they knew. A failed turning is an abomination. A weakness. The boy turned his head, fixing her with those terrible eyes. You should go. If he finds you here, he'll erase your memory. Or worse. Elena should have run. Every rational thought demanded it. But she looked at this child, this boy trapped in endless agony, and saw herself, abandoned, condemned, left to suffer in silence. What's your name? She asked. He blinked, surprised. Lucien. I'm Elena. She sat on the edge of the bed, ignoring how the cold radiated from him. Tell me about the pain, Lucien. Where does it hurt most? For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then slowly, he lifted his nightshirt. Elena's breath caught. His torso was a map of black veins, spreading from his heart like roots. But at the center, just below his sternum, something moved beneath the skin. Something dark and pulsing, wrong in a way that made her stomach turn. What is that? She whispered. I don't know. Lucien's voice cracked. It appeared 5 years ago. It grows. It hurts. My father won't speak of it. The physicians he summons can't see it, only I can feel it. Only I know it's killing me. Elena leaned closer, her candle, casting shadows across his skin. The thing beneath rift, and she saw it clearly, a shard black as obsidian, embedded in his flesh, pulsing with its own rhythm, separate from his struggling heart. Dear God, she breathed. The door slammed open. A man stood in the threshold, and Elena's heart stopped. He was tall, impossibly so, dressed in black, with silver threading his dark hair. His face was carved from marble, beautiful and terrible, ancient beyond measure. But it was his eyes that pinned her, blood red, burning with fury and something deeper. Something like fear. Get away from my son, he said, his voice soft as death. Elena stood, her legs shaking, but she did not retreat. He's in pain. There's something inside him, I know. The vampire's voice cracked like ice. He crossed the room in a blur, placing himself between Elena and the bed. You have no business here, mortal. No understanding of what you've seen. Then explain it to me. The words left her mouth before courage could fail. Because that boy is suffering, and you're letting it happen. The vampire's eyes widened just slightly. No one, Elena realized, had dared speak to him like this in a very long time. Leave, he said quietly. Now, before I make you forget you ever drew breath in this house. Elena met his gaze, her hands steady, despite the terror singing through her veins. No, the word hung in the air between them, a challenge. A gamble, a line crossed. The vampire lord stared at her, and Elena saw the exact moment his fury shifted into something far more dangerous. Curiosity. What is your name? He asked. Elena Voss. Elena Voss. He tasted the syllables like wine. You've just signed your death warrant, perhaps, she said. But first, you're going to let me help your son. Chapter 2. The bargain in Blood. The vampire lord did not move, but the air around him seemed to sharpen, as if the room itself held its breath. You presume much, mortal, he said, his voice low and controlled. You stand in my home, uninvited in my son's chamber, and make demands of me as if you have any power here. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced herself to remain still. She had gambled everything on this moment, her safety, perhaps her sanity. But Lucien's labored breathing behind the vampire reminded her why she couldn't retreat. I presume nothing, she said carefully. But I know pain when I see it, and I know desperation. You've kept him hidden for 63 years, and whatever is inside him is getting worse. If you had a solution, you would have used it by now. The vampire's jaw tightened. For a moment, Elena thought he might strike her down where she stood. Instead, he turned slightly, his gaze falling on the small figure in the bed. Father, Lucien whispered, she can see it. The shard. She's the first person who's seen it. The vampire's eyes snapped back to Elena, red irises flaring with something between shock and desperate hope. What do you see? Elena swallowed, choosing her words carefully. Something black, lodged beneath his sternum. It moves independently of his heartbeat. It looks like glass or obsidian, but it pulses with its own rhythm. The vampire crossed to his son in 3 swift strides, pulling back the nightshirt with practiced gentleness that contradicted his fearsome appearance. His fingers hovered over Lucien's chest, not quite touching. I've brought every physician, every scholar, every witch who might help, he said, his voice raw. None of them could see what you describe. They said the pain was phantom, a symptom of an incomplete turning, nothing more. They were wrong, Elena said quietly. The vampire's hand clenched into a fist. I tried to save him. He was dying a mortal illness, a fever that wouldn't break. His mother begged me. She died believing I could make him immortal, that he would survive. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I failed her. I failed him. Elena moved closer, drawn by the grief that radiated from this ancient creature. You haven't failed him yet. Let me help. You're a servant, he said, but there was no cruelty in it. What could you possibly do? I was a nurse, Elena corrected, before my life fell apart. I know anatomy. I know how to think systematically about symptoms, about causes. She gestured to Lucien. May I examine him properly? The vampire studied her for a long moment, and Elena felt the weight of centuries in that gaze. Finally, he stepped back. My name is Victor Draven, he said. Lord of House Draven, keeper of the Northern Covenant. If you harm my son, I will make your death last for years. Understood? Elena approached the bed, her hands steady despite her fear. Lucien, I'm going to touch the area around the shard. Tell me when it hurts. The boy nodded, his ancient eyes watching her with fragile trust. Elena's fingers were warm against his frozen skin. She pressed gently around the dark mass, feeling for its edges, its depth. Lucian hissed when she touched the left side. There, he gasped. It burns there. She felt it, then a ridge beneath the skin, something with defined edges. It has a shape. It's not organic. Someone put this inside you. Victor moved so fast she didn't see him until he was beside her, his presence overwhelming. What do you mean someone put it there? This isn't a symptom of his turning, Elena said, her mind racing through possibilities. It's deliberate. Surgical? Almost. Someone embedded this in his chest. She looked up at Victor. Who would want to hurt him? Victor's expression turned murderous. Every vampire house that fears what a successful child turning would mean. Every rival who wants House Draven weak. His hands shook with barely contained rage. But to reach him here, in my stronghold, under my protection, it would have to be someone you trusted. Elena finished. The silence that followed was suffocating. Father, Lucian said weakly. The physician, Dr. Hastings. He examined me 5 years ago. Right before the pain started, Victor's face went pale, or as pale as his already marble complexion could manage. Hastings was recommended by House Valcour. They said he was the foremost expert on transitional ailments. House Valcour, Elena repeated. Your rivals? My enemies, Victor corrected. But we were in negotiations. A treaty. I thought. He closed his eyes. I thought if I showed good faith, if I worked toward peace, they would honor it. They used your hope against you, Elena said softly. They've been poisoning him slowly, keeping him weak, keeping you distracted and isolated. Victor's eyes opened, burning with fury that made the air crackle. I will burn House Valcour to ash. I will scatter their remains across. Wait, Elena interrupted, and the fact that she dared stop him mid-threat seemed to shock him into silence. If you attack now, you show your hand. They'll know you've discovered the shard. They might have contingencies, ways to make it worse, to kill him instantly if they're threatened. Victor's jaw worked. What do you suggest? Let me try to remove it. The words came out before Elena fully processed them. If it's embedded surgically, it might be removable the same way. I've assisted in surgeries before. I know how to work with precision, how to minimize damage. He's not human, Victor said. His body doesn't heal like yours. If you cut too deep, if you damage the wrong vessel, then teach me, Elena said. Tell me how vampire anatomy works. What to avoid. What I need to know. Victor stared at her as if she'd sprouted wings. You would do this? Risk everything for a child you've just met? For creatures you should fear? Elena looked at Lucian, at his suffering, at his hope, at the way he watched her, like she was the first person in 63 years to see him as worth saving. Yes, she said simply. Victor was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. You'll stay here, in the West Wing. The other servants must not know what we're attempting. If word reaches House Valcour, I understand, you'll need time to learn. To prepare, Victor moved to the window, his silhouette sharp against the heavy curtains. And I'll need to ensure you're protected. If they discover Immortal has seen through their deception, they'll kill you. How long do we have? Elena asked. Victor looked at his son, and for the first time, Elena saw the mask crack, saw the father beneath the monster. Not long enough, he whispered. Chapter 3. Lessons in Darkness. Elena woke to find her belongings moved. Her small canvas bag now sat in a room 3 doors down from Lucian's chamber, a space that had clearly been unused for decades. Dust coated the vanity, and the curtains hung in tatters. But someone, Victor, she assumed, had left fresh linens on the bed and placed an oil lamp on the nightstand. A note rested beside it, written in elegant script. Do not leave the West Wing. I will come for you at sunset. She checked her pocket watch. 4 in the afternoon. 2 hours until he woke. Elena spent the time exploring her new prison. The West Wing was a monument to abandonment, rooms filled with furniture draped in white sheets. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors, watching from cobwebbed walls. And everywhere, the smell of time standing still. She found a library, its shelves sagging under leather-bound volumes. Medical texts, anatomical drawings, bestiaries that detailed creatures she'd thought were myth, and books on vampire physiology. Elena pulled one from the shelf, coughing as dust billowed. The title read, The Immortal Form, a comprehensive study of vampire anatomy. She settled into a worn armchair and began to read. Vampires, she learned, were creatures of contradictions. Their hearts beat only a few times per minute, yet their blood moved through supernatural pressure, not circulation. They healed from almost any wound, but silver and direct sunlight caused irreversible damage. Their bodies were frozen at the moment of turning immortal, unchanging, perfect, except when they weren't. A chapter on failed turnings made her stomach clench. Children turned before puberty rarely survived. Their bodies couldn't sustain the transformation to much change, too much violence to a system still growing. Most died screaming. The few who survived existed in perpetual agony, caught between mortality and immortality, belonging fully to neither. Lucian had survived 63 years like this. Elena was still reading when darkness pressed against the windows. The lamp beside her flickered, though there was no breeze. "You're resourceful." Victor's voice came from the doorway. She didn't startle, she'd felt the temperature drop. The way the air shifted when he entered a room. "I need to understand what I'm working with." He moved into the library with that preternatural grace, his red eyes scanning the book in her lap. Thornberry's text. Dry, but accurate. He settled into the chair across from her, and Elena noticed he chose to sit rather than loom. A concession to her comfort, perhaps. "Why does his heart beat so slowly?" she asked. "Because he's caught between states. A mortal heart trying to sustain immortal flesh." Victor's fingers drummed against the armrest. "Adult vampires don't need their hearts to beat at all. It's habit mostly, comfort. But Lucian's body still remembers being human. It's killing him and keeping him alive simultaneously." Elena absorbed this. "And the shard, if it's near his heart, removal could be catastrophic." "Yes." Victor's expression was grave. "One wrong cut, and he could bleed out before his supernatural healing engages. If it engages at all, given his condition, then I need to practice," Elena said. "Not on him. On something similar enough to understand the landscape." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, extending his hand. "Come with me." She took it, and the cold of his skin shocked her, even though she'd expected it. He led her deeper into the west wing, down a spiral staircase she hadn't found in her exploration. The air grew colder, damper. They emerged into a chamber carved from stone, part laboratory, part operating theater. A table dominated the center, its surface stained with old blood. Instruments hung on the walls, some familiar, others alien and terrifying. "This is where I attempted to save him," Victor said quietly. "Where I made him what he is." Elena touched the table, feeling the weight of that confession. "You loved his mother." "I loved them both." His voice carried centuries of grief. "She was mortal, brilliant, fearless. She knew what I was and chose me anyway. Lucian was 7 when the fever took him. She begged me with her dying breath to turn him, to give him eternity." He picked up a scalpel, its blade glinting. "I should have refused. I should have let him go peacefully." "You gave him a chance," Elena said. "That's more than nothing." Victor's laugh was bitter. "A chance at eternal suffering. What mercy. Then let me give him a chance at more." Elena met his eyes. "Teach me. Show me how to work with vampire flesh. I'll practice until my hands don't shake, until I could perform the surgery blind, if necessary." Victor studied her, and she felt the full weight of his ancient scrutiny. "Why do you care so much? You owe us nothing. You could leave, return to London, rebuild your life." Elena thought of her ruined reputation, her former Fianchet's family, the way society had discarded her. "I have no life to return to. They made sure of that when they blamed me for their crimes." She straightened her spine. "But even if I did, I couldn't walk away from a child in pain. I couldn't live with myself." Something shifted in Victor's expression. Not quite warmth, but recognition. "You've been betrayed, thoroughly, by someone you trusted. The man I was going to marry." The words still tasted like ash. "He stole from his own family's company, and when they discovered it, he claimed I had seduced him, manipulated him, that I was the thief. His family was powerful enough to make it truth." Victor set down the scalpel with deliberate care. "I know something of betrayal, of trusting the wrong people." His jaw tightened. "House Valcour promised peace. I believed them. And they've been poisoning my son for 5 years. Then we both have scores to settle," Elena said. A ghost of a smile touched Victor's lips, the first she'd seen. "Indeed." He gestured to the instruments. "We'll start with basic incisions. Vampire flesh resists cutting, unless you know the technique. It requires confidence, speed, and precision." He picked up what looked like an obsidian blade. "Steel dulls too quickly against our skin. Silver burns us. Glass shatters. Obsidian, however, holds an edge and slides through cleanly. Elena accepted the blade, feeling its weight. What will I practice on? Victor rolled up his sleeve, exposing his forearm. Me. Her eyes widened. I can, you must. His voice was firm. You need to feel how the flesh resists, how deep to cut, how quickly we heal. I'll walk you through it. He met her gaze. I'm trusting you with this, Elena. With my body, with my son's life. Don't make me regret it. Elena's hand steadied around the blade. Where do I cut? Here. He indicated a line across his inner forearm. Quick and decisive. Hesitation causes ragged edges. She pressed the obsidian to his skin, feeling it resist. Then, gathering her courage, she sliced. The blade parted his flesh like water, revealing muscle and something darker than blood. Victor didn't flinch. Good, he said. Now watch. Before her eyes, the wound began to close. Not knitting, transforming. The flesh simply reformed, as if it had never been cut. Vampire healing is instantaneous for minor wounds, Victor explained. But trauma to vital areas, the heart, the spine, the brain, that takes time. Sometimes days. For Lucian, even longer. Elena nodded, absorbing this. Again, they worked through the night. Cut after cut, Elena learned the resistance of immortal flesh, the precision needed, the confidence required. Victor never complained, never stopped her. Even when her hands shook with exhaustion. By dawn, her arms ached and her eyes burned. But she could make clean incisions without hesitation. Enough, Victor said finally. You need rest. So do you. She set down the blade, noticing he hadn't healed the last cut. Why aren't you closing that one? He looked at his arm as if surprised. I'll heal when I sleep. The sun will rise soon. I must return to my chamber. The day sleep, Elena said, remembering the texts. You're vulnerable then. Completely. Victor's expression turned serious. Which is why I'm trusting you with something few mortals know. My resting chamber is in the East Tower. If anything happens, if House Valcour attacks during daylight, if Lucian worsens, you'll be the only one awake to protect him. The weight of that trust settled over Elena like a cloak. I won't fail him, she promised. Victor moved toward the door, then paused. You stood up to me last night, refused my order to leave. No one has done that into centuries. Should I apologize? No, he glanced back, and something almost like respect flickered in his eyes. Don't ever stop. Then he was gone, leaving Elena alone in the blood-stained chamber, holding an obsidian blade and a promise she intended to keep. Chapter 4. The Truth Between Monsters 3. Days passed in the strange rhythm of Victor's household. Elena spent her daylight hours with Lucian, reading to him from adventure novels, teaching him card games, learning the peculiar habits of a child who'd been 8 years old for 6 decades. He didn't eat, couldn't, really, but he liked the smell of tea. He couldn't go outside, but he described the moors from memory, from a time when sunlight didn't burn. I remember running, he told her one afternoon, his voice wistful. My mother chasing me through the garden. I fell and scraped my knee, and she kissed it better. His fingers traced the black veins spreading across his chest. Now I can't feel anything but pain. Elena's heart clenched. Soon, she promised. We'll remove the shards soon. At night, Victor taught her. Not just surgical technique, but vampire lore, the intricate politics of the houses, the blood oaths that bound them, the ancient laws that governed immortal society. She learned that vampires couldn't feed without consent, that their bites could be ecstasy or agony, depending on intent, that some bonds forged in blood could never be broken. House Valcour wants war, Victor explained on the 4th night, pacing the laboratory like a caged wolf. They've wanted it for centuries, but the old treaties prevent open conflict. So they work in shadows, poisoning alliances, weakening rivals, waiting for the excuse to strike. And if they kill Lucian? Elena asked, cleaning the obsidian blades they'd been using. Then I would have nothing left to lose. I'd burn their house to foundations, treaty or not. Victor's eyes flared red. Which is exactly what they want. A lord gone mad with grief, breaking the ancient laws. The other houses would have to destroy me. Valcour would claim my territory, my resources, my seat on the Night Council. Elena set down the blade carefully. They're using your love against you. As you said, they've turned my hope into a weapon. He stopped pacing, his silhouette stark against the lamplight. Tell me, Elena, in your world, when someone wounds you, what's the proper response? She thought of her fianc, of his family's lies. The proper response? Turn the other cheek, forgive, move on. And the improper one? A bitter smile touched her lips. Make them regret every breath they take. Victor's expression shifted something dangerous and approving. I believe I'm starting to understand why you didn't run when I threatened you. You didn't truly threaten me, Elena observed. You postured. There's a difference. He blinked, then laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. Postured. Yes, I suppose I did. He moved closer, and Elena noticed he'd been doing that more often. Not threatening, but studying. Curious. You see through pretense easily. I had to learn. My fiancé was an excellent liar. She met his gaze steadily. But liars have tells. They over-explain. They watch for your reaction, adjust their story based on what you believe. You do neither. Because I rarely lie, Victor said. After 700 years, the truth becomes easier than remembering fabrications. 700 years. The number should have terrified her. Instead, Elena found herself wondering what it meant to carry that much time, that much memory, that much loss. Your son, she said quietly. He said his mother begged you to turn him. But you hesitated. Victor's jaw tightened. I knew the odds. I'd seen child turnings fail. The screaming, the convulsions, the way their small bodies tore themselves apart fighting the change. He closed his eyes. I told her no. She had days left, maybe hours. She wept. She begged. She said she couldn't bear leaving him alone, that I had to try, that any chance was better than none. So you tried. I tried. His voice broke on the word. And I gave him this half-life instead. This suffering. Elena stepped closer, drawn by the raw pain in his confession. You gave him 63 years. He wouldn't have had. 63 years where he's known love, safety, someone fighting for him. That's not nothing, Victor. He opened his eyes, and she saw something vulnerable. There's something that had been buried under centuries of control. You truly believe that? I do. Even though he's in constant pain. Even though I've essentially cursed him? Even though. Elena's hand moved of its own accord, touching his arm. The cold of his skin no longer shocked her. Because the alternative was watching him die at 7, watching his mother die knowing she'd failed him. You gave them both hope. Sometimes hope is all we have. Victor stared at her hand on his arm, as if no one had willingly touched him in lifetimes. You're an unusual woman, Elena Voss. I'm a desperate one, she corrected. Desperate people do unusual things. Is that why you're here? Desperation? She considered lying, offering some noble reason. But he'd said truth was easier. At first, yes, I needed the position. But now, she looked toward the ceiling, toward Lucien's room above. Now I'm here because that child deserves someone who sees him as more than a failed experiment, as more than a political liability. He is neither of those things to me, Victor said sharply. I know. Elena squeezed his arm gently. That's why I'm helping you. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with things neither seemed ready to name. Victor's gaze dropped to where her hand still rested on his sleeve. You don't fear me, he said finally. Should I? Most mortals do. The red eyes, the fangs, the predator's instinct. They sense even when I'm perfectly controlled. He tilted his head. But you've never flinched. Not when I threatened you. Not when I've moved too fast. Not even when I've been close enough to. He stopped. Close enough to what? Elena prompted. To hurt you. But the way he said it suggested hurt wasn't what he'd been thinking. Elena's pulse quickened, though not from fear. She'd been alone with this ancient vampire for days now, learning the contours of his grief, watching the way he gentled himself around his son, seeing past the monster to the father beneath. Somewhere in those late-night lessons, something had shifted. She should be terrified. She should run. Instead, she said, you won't hurt me. How can you possibly know that? Because I've seen you with Lucien. I've seen you blame yourself for his pain every moment of every night. Someone that consumed with protecting his child isn't capable of casual cruelty. Victor's expression flickered through several emotions too fast to name. Elena, a crash echoed from above, followed by Lucien's scream. They both ran. Elena's mortal legs couldn't match Victor's speed, but she reached the boy's chamber only seconds behind him. Lucien was convulsing on the bed, his body arching as black lines spread further across his skin. The shard beneath his sternum pulsed violently, visible even through his nightshirt. It's growing, Victor breathed. Horror in his voice. Elena pushed past him, pressing her hands to Lucien's chest, feeling the wrongness writhing beneath. The shard had expanded. She could feel new edges, new branches reaching toward the boy's heart. We're out of time, she said. We have to remove it now. You're not ready. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. Elena met Victor's terrified gaze. And if we wait another day, it might reach his heart. Then there will be nothing to remove, nothing to save. Victor looked at his son, writhing in agony. Then at Elena, this mortal woman who'd appeared in his life mere days ago and appended everything. Prepare the laboratory, he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. We operate tonight. Chapter 5. The surgery of shadows. The laboratory had never felt so cold. Victor carried Lucien down the spiral stairs, the boy's small body limp in his arms. Elena followed, her medical bag clutched tight, her mind racing through every procedure she'd ever assisted with. Every lesson Victor had drilled into her over the past 3 nights. None of it felt like enough. They laid Lucien on the stained table, and Elena forced herself into the clinical mindset she'd learned at the hospital. Not a suffering child. Not a boy she'd grown to care for. A patient. A problem to solve. His pain tolerance is extraordinary, Victor said, arranging instruments with shaking hands the first time Elena had seen him anything less than perfectly controlled. But this will be agony beyond what even he's endured. I can't give him laudanum or ether. Vampire physiology rejects mortal sedatives. Then we'll have to be fast. Elena tied her hair back, scrubbed her hands in the basin of blessed water Victor kept for sterilization. Talk me through it one more time. What happens if I cut too deep? His healing will struggle to engage while the shard remains. He could bleed out, not die, but fall into a torpor that might last years, decades. Victor's voice was tight. If you sever the wrong vessel near his heart, the damage could be irreversible. And if we do nothing? Victor looked at his son's pale face. The shard reaches his heart in days, maybe hours. Then he dies screaming, and I lose the last thing in this world that matters. Elena nodded, accepting the weight of it. Then we proceed. Strap him down. Victor's hands hesitated over the leather restraints. I've never had to, he's never needed. He'll thrash, Elena said gently. Instinct. We can't risk him moving at the wrong moment. With infinite care, Victor secured his son's wrists and ankles. Lucien's ancient eyes opened, clear despite the pain. Father, he whispered. If this goes wrong, it won't. Victor's voice broke. But if it does, Lucien insisted with a child's stubborn clarity. It's not her fault. Promise me you won't hurt her. Promise me. Victor's throat worked. He looked at Elena, then back at his son. I promise. Lucien turned his gaze to Elena, managing a weak smile. Thank you for seeing me. For not looking away. Elena's eyes burned, but she blinked the tears back. I'm getting that thing out of you. Then you're going to tell me more stories about your mother. I'm not nearly finished hearing about her. Deal, Lucien breathed. Elena picked up the obsidian scalpel, feeling its familiar weight. Victor moved to his son's side, gripping the boy's hand. Ready? She asked. Victor nodded, his jaw set. Elena cut. The blade parted Lucien's flesh cleanly, just as Victor had taught her. Blood welled darker than human blood, moving sluggishly. She worked quickly, widening the incision, exposing the network of black veins that spider webbed across his chest. Lucien screamed. The sound tore through Elena's composure, but she forced her hands steady. She couldn't afford mercy. Not now. I see it, she breathed. The shard was larger than she'd thought, a piece of obsidian glass the size of her thumb, its edges barbed, embedded deliberately deep. Tendrils of it had grown into surrounding tissue like roots. Dear God, Victor whispered. It's been feeding on him. Elena used silver forceps to probe the edges, feeling where the shard had fused with Lucien's supernatural flesh. It's grown into 3 major vessels. I'll have to separate them carefully, or the bleeding will be catastrophic. Tell me what you need, Victor said, his free hand hovering uselessly. Keep him still. And talk to him. Keep him focused on your voice, not the pain. Victor leaned close to his son's ear, murmuring in a language Elena didn't recognize, something old and flowing. Probably the tongue he'd spoken when he was mortal. Lucien's screams quieted to whimpers, his eyes locked on his father's face. Elena worked with painstaking precision. Each tendril of the shard had to be teased free without tearing the vessels it had invaded. Sweat dripped down her spine despite the cold. Her hands ached from the tension of holding them perfectly steady. The first tendril came free with a wet sound. Lucien convulsed, and Victor's ancient strength was all that kept him from tearing himself off the table. 2 more, Elena murmured. Just 2 more. The second tendril was buried deeper, wrapped around something that pulsed with Lucien's struggling heartbeat. Elena's breath caught. One wrong move, and she could sever it entirely. Victor, she said quietly, I need you to tell me exactly what I'm looking at. He glanced down, and his face went white. That's the primary vessel feeding his heart. If you cut it, I won't. Elena adjusted her grip, approaching from a different angle. But I need absolute stillness. Can you hold him? Victor's arms became iron bands around his son. Cut. Elena slid the blade between vessel and tendril with a surgeon's faith and a prayer to any god listening. The obsidian edge parted the shard's growth without touching the vessel beneath. Lucien's back arched, his scream tearing through the chamber. Last one, Elena gasped. Almost there. The final tendril had wrapped around a cluster of smaller vessels near Lucien's sternum. Elena worked with trembling precision, separating each fiber, each barb, until finally the shard came loose in her forceps. She lifted it free, and it pulsed in her grip like a living thing. Black and malevolent. It's out, she breathed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lucien's chest cavity began to change. The black veins started to recede, withdrawing like poison being drawn from a wound. His skin, translucent and blue-veined for 63 years, began to warm not to human warmth, but to the cool marble of healthy vampire flesh. Victor stared in disbelief. He's healing. Elena, he's actually healing. She watched, exhausted and amazed, as Lucien's supernatural nature finally engaged properly. The surgical incision closed before her eyes, the flesh knitting seamlessly. The boy's heartbeat, so slow and struggling before, found a new rhythm, still inhuman, but steady, strong. Lucien's eyes fluttered open, clear for the first time since she'd met him. It doesn't hurt, he whispered, wonder in his voice. Father, it doesn't hurt anymore. Victor's composure shattered. He gathered his son against his chest, careful of the healing wound, and wept silent. Shaking sobs that spoke of 63 years of helpless agony finally ended. Elena stepped back, giving them privacy, and nearly collapsed. Victor's hand shot out, steadying her with preternatural speed. You saved him, he said, his voice raw. You saved my son. We saved him, Elena corrected, swaying on her feet. Victor looked at the shard still clutched in her forceps, his expression hardening. House Valcour did this. Hastings, their pet physician, implanted this abomination in my child. What will you do? Elena asked, though she suspected. She knew. Victor's eyes burned crimson, ancient fury rising. I'm going to show them what happens when you hurt what belongs to House Draven. He turned to her, and she saw the vampire lord beneath the grieving father, 700 years of power and wrath. But first, I'm going to make sure you're protected. Because when they learn you remove their weapon, they'll come for you too. Elena's exhaustion crystallized into clarity. She'd just made herself a target of an immortal house. She should be terrified. Instead, looking at Lucien's peaceful face, at Victor's fierce, protective rage, she felt something else entirely. Purpose. Let them come, she said quietly. I'm not running anymore. Victor stared at her, something shifting in his expression, respect, gratitude, and beneath it, something warmer, something dangerous. No. He agreed softly. I don't believe you are. Chapter 6. Blood Oaths and Broken Triadia Solution slept peacefully for the first time in 63 years. Elena sat beside his bed in the pearl gray light of dawn, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The black veins had vanished completely. His skin held the luminous quality of healthy vampire flesh, pale as moonlight, but no longer translucent. When she'd checked his pulse an hour ago, it had been strong and even, beating with the slow rhythm Victor had described as normal for their kind. She should sleep. Her body screamed for it, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the surgery, the blood, the shard pulsing in her forceps. The moment when everything could have gone catastrophically wrong. You need rest. Elena didn't startle. She'd learned to sense Victor's presence the way temperature dropped, the way shadows deepened. So do you, she said. The sun rose 20 minutes ago. You should be in your chamber. Victor moved into the room, and she noticed he carried a bundle of dark fabric. I've delayed my rest before. I'll survive. He set the bundle on the chair beside her. These are for you. Clothing more suitable than a servant's uniform. If House Valcour comes, you'll need to appear as what you are under my protection. Elena unfolded the fabric, revealing a gown of deep burgundy velvet, finely made but practical. Not a ball gown, but something a lady of standing might wear. Victor, I can't accept. You can and you will. His tone brooked no argument. The servants are already talking. Mrs. Calloway knows you've been in the West Wing for days. By now, rumors will have reached the village. And if rumors reach the village, he trailed off, jaw tight, they reach House Valcour. Elena finished. Exactly. Victor moved to the window, though he stayed carefully in shadow. I've sent word to the Night Council, requesting an emergency session. I'm accusing House Valcour of breaking the treaty, of attempted murder of a child under protected status. Will they believe you? They'll have to. I have evidence. He gestured toward the laboratory below, where the shard now sat in a sealed glass case. That thing reeks of Valcour's blood magic. Any vampire with functioning senses will recognize their signature. Elena stood, fatigue making her sway slightly. What happens at this council session? House Valcour will deny everything. They'll claim the shard was planted by enemies, that I'm manufacturing evidence to justify breaking the treaty. Victor's hands clenched. They'll demand proof that Hastings acted under their orders, not independently. Proof I don't have. Then what? Then it becomes my word against theirs. And the council doesn't move without absolute certainty. His voice turned bitter. They'll call for an investigation. Months of deliberation while Valcour prepares their next move. By the time justice is served, we could all be dead. Elena processed this, her strategic mind engaging despite her exhaustion. What if we force their hand? Make them reveal themselves? Victor turned, red eyes sharp. What do you mean? They think the shard is still inside Lucien. They think he's still dying, that you're still distracted and desperate. She met his gaze. What if we let them believe that? What if we set a trap? A slow, dangerous smile curved Victor's lips. Continue. Invite Hastings back. Tell him Lucien has worsened, that you need his expertise urgently. When he arrives, confront him with the shard. Elena's pulse quickened as the plan took shape. He'll panic. He'll try to contact House Valcour, warn them the plot has failed. And when he does, we intercept the message. Proof of conspiracy. Victor's smile widened, showing the barest hint of fang. You have a devious mind, Elena Voss. I learned from devious people, she said darkly, thinking of her ex-fiancé. Victor studied her for a long moment. This plan puts you in danger. When Hastings arrives, he'll see you. He'll report back that a mortal woman has been working closely with me, that she's involved in Lucien's care. Valcour will see you as a threat. I'm already a threat. I removed their weapon, yes, but they don't know that yet. The moment Hastings sees you, your anonymity ends. Victor stepped closer, his expression serious. They'll target you, Elena. Send assassins. Use you as leverage against me. Elena lifted her chin. Then protect me. How? I can't guard you every hour. I'm dead to the world during daylight, and Valcour knows it. Then make me harder to kill. The words came out before she fully formed the thought, but once spoken, she knew they were right. You said vampires can create blood bonds. Connections that allow them to sense each other, to share strength. Victor went very still. You're suggesting I blood bond with you. Would it work? Would it let you know if I'm in danger, even during the day? Yes. His voice was careful, controlled. A blood bond would create a permanent connection between us. I would feel your fear, your pain. If you were threatened, I would know, even in day sleep. The bond would give me strength to wake, to come for you. Then do it, Elena. Victor's hand caught her wrist, his touch cold and gentle. Do you understand what you're asking? Blood bonds aren't temporary. They last lifetimes, centuries. You would be tied to me, able to feel my emotions as I feel yours. Every fear, every sorrow, He stopped abruptly. Every what? Elena prompted. His jaw worked. Everything. There are no secrets in a blood bond. No privacy. You would know me, truly know me, in ways most mortals couldn't bear. Elena thought of the past days working beside him, learning his grief, seeing how he gentled himself around his son, watching 700 years of loneliness crack open. I already know you, Victor. The bond would just make it official. You don't know what you're saying, don't I? She turned her hand in his grip, clasping his fingers. You said vampires can't feed without consent, can't bond without it. I'm giving you my consent, freely, clearly. Her pulse beat hard against her throat. Unless you don't want? Victor's laugh was strangled. Elena, I've wanted since the moment you defied me in Lucien's chamber. Since you looked at a monster and saw a father. Since you trusted me enough to cut into my flesh night after night, without hesitation. His free hand rose, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. But wanting and having are different things. I'm 700 years old. You're mortal, young, with a life ahead of you. A life? Elena's voice sharpened. What life? The one where I'm shunned by society, unable to find work, branded a thief and a seductress. That life? She stepped closer, forcing him to meet her eyes. Or the life where I saved a suffering child, where I matter, where I'm seen as something more than a scandal. You matter, Victor said roughly. You matter more than you know. Then bond with me. Make me part of House Draven. Give me the protection I need to help you destroy the people who hurt Lucien. Victor's control was cracking. She could see it in the way his eyes burned brighter, in the tension of his jaw. If I do this, there's no going back. You'll be mine, Elena. Mine to protect. Mine to defend. And I've already lost so much. If I lost you too, you won't. Elena raised her free hand to his face, feeling him freeze at the contact. I'm not running. I'm not leaving. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. The words hung between them, meaning more than just the blood bond, and they both knew it. Victor closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they blazed with decision. Sit. Elena lowered herself into the chair, her heart racing. Victor knelt before her, ancient vampire lord, on his knees before a mortal woman, and took her wrist with infinite gentleness. This will hurt, he warned. Not the bite itself, but the bond forming. It will feel like fire in your veins. I can handle pain. His thumb traced her pulse point. Once I begin, you must stay conscious. If you faint, the bond will form improperly. You'll be caught between mortal and immortal, neither fully yourself nor connected to me. Do you understand? Yes. Victor brought her wrist to his lips, his breath cold against her skin. Last chance to change your mind. Elena met his burning gaze. Bite me. He did. The pain was exquisite, sharp puncture, then heat flooding through her veins like molten gold. Elena gasped, but didn't pull away. She felt Victor drinking, felt something deeper than blood passing between them. The laboratory walls seemed to shimmer, and suddenly she felt him, his fear for Lucien, his rage at Valcour, his desperate hope that she wouldn't regret this, and underneath it all, a loneliness so vast it made her chest ache. You're not alone anymore, she thought, not sure if she was speaking to him or herself. His eyes flared wide. You can hear me. I can feel you. Wonder filled her, mixed with the pain. Everything. Victor withdrew his fangs, sealing the wounds with his tongue. The punctures closed immediately, leaving only faint silver scars. It's done, he whispered. You're mine now, bonded to House Draven, under my protection by blood law. Elena felt the bond settle into place, a golden thread connecting her heart to his, pulsing with shared life. She could sense him like a second heartbeat, steady and eternal. Now, she said, her voice stronger than she felt, let's invite Dr. Hastings to dinner. Chapter 7. The physicians returned her. Hastings arrived 3 nights later in a carriage bearing House Valcour's silver crest. Elena watched from the library window as the physician stepped onto the gravel drive. His black bag in hand, his expression carefully arranged into professional concern. He was younger than she'd expected, perhaps 40 in mortal years, with sharp features and calculating eyes that swept the estate's facade. Through the blood bond, she felt Victor's cold fury like ice in her veins. Easy, she thought, toward him. We need him to incriminate himself first. I know. Victor's presence in her mind was a dark current. Doesn't mean I have to like watching my son's poisoner walk freely through my home. Elena had grown accustomed to the bond over the past 3 days, the constant awareness of Victor's emotions, the way their thoughts sometimes overlapped. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like finally being understood. She descended the main stairs in her burgundy gown, her hair pinned in a style Mrs. Calloway had helped arrange. The old housekeeper had said nothing about Elena's transformation from servant to lady, but her knowing look suggested she understood more than she let on. Victor waited in the entrance hall. Every inch the vampire lord, dark suit impeccably tailored, silver threading his temples, red eyes carefully shuttered. He'd glamored himself slightly, Elena realized. Made himself appear less dangerous, more desperate. The performance began. Dr. Hastings. Victor's voice carried just the right note of exhausted relief. Thank you for coming so quickly. Lucien has deteriorated significantly since your last visit. Hastings set down his bag, his eyes flickering briefly to Elena before returning to Victor. I came as soon as I received your message, Lord Draven. I must confess, I'm surprised to find you've taken in company. Miss Voss is my son's nurse, Victor said smoothly. She has experience with difficult cases. I thought her presence might comfort him. Elena curtsied, playing the demure servant. My lord is too kind. Hastings' smile didn't reach his eyes. A mortal nurse. How unconventional. He picked up his bag. Shall we see the patient? They climbed to Lucien's chamber, and Elena felt Victor's rage building with each step. She placed her hand briefly on his arm, a gesture that looked supportive but was really a reminder. Control. We need his confession. Lucien lay in bed, playing his part perfectly. He'd paled his skin with powder, darkened the circles under his eyes with ash. When Hastings entered, he even managed a convincing whimper. My boy, Victor said, his voice breaking authentically. The pain has spread. Show doctor. Hastings. Lucien lifted his nightshirt with trembling hands, revealing his bare chest. Elena had coached him carefully. He'd drawn the black veins back onto his skin with ink, made them appear even more extensive than before. Hastings leaned close, and Elena saw the flash of satisfaction in his eyes before he smoothed it away. I see, the physician murmured, fingers hovering over the false marks. The progression is faster than I anticipated. The toxin is. He stopped, catching himself. Toxin? Victor's voice was deadly soft. A figure of speech, my lord. I meant the condition. Hastings straightened, pulling a vial from his bag. I have a tincture that should ease his suffering. If you'll permit me to administer it? Elena stepped forward smoothly. What's in the tincture, doctor? Lord Draven likes to keep careful records of all treatments. Hastings' expression flickered with annoyance. Willow bark, poppy extract, and certain proprietary ingredients. I assure you, it's perfectly safe. I'm sure it is, Elena said pleasantly, taking the vial from his hand before he could protest. She unstoppered it, sniffed delicately, and her stomach turned. Beneath the herbal scents was something else, something metallic and wrong that made the bond recoil. Victor, smell this. She passed him the vial, and his eyes blazed crimson. This isn't medicine, Victor said quietly. This is accelerant, designed to speed the shard's growth, to finish what you started 5 years ago. The room went very still. Hastings took a step back, his hand moving toward his coat. I don't know what you're implying, Lord Draven, but I assure me of nothing. Victor moved with terrifying speed, pinning Hastings against the wall. You embedded a cursed shard in my son's chest. You've been monitoring its progress, adjusting your poisons to keep him hovering just this side of death. And now you've come to finish your work. Prove it. Hastings spat, some of his composure cracking. You have no evidence. My word against yours, and the council will see this. Elena opened the drawer beside Lucien's bed, pulling out the sealed case containing the black shard. It pulsed with malevolent energy, and she saw Hastings' face go white. Impossible, he breathed. It can't be removed. The barbs, the growth pattern, it was designed to be permanent, was it? Victor's voice was silk over steel. Designed by whom, doctor? Commissioned by what house? Hastings' throat worked. I want safe passage, immunity. Then I'll tell you everything. You'll tell me everything regardless, Victor said. The only question is whether you do it with your mind intact or as a thrall bound to my will. Through the bond, Elena felt Victor's power rising, ancient, overwhelming, terrible. This was the vampire lord she'd only glimpsed before, the predator who'd ruled for 7 centuries. Wait, she said aloud, touching Victor's arm. To Hastings, she said, if you cooperate, Lord Draven might be persuaded to grant you a clean death instead of an eternity as his slave. That's more mercy than you showed, Lucien. Hastings looked between them, weighing his options. Finally, his shoulders sagged. House Valcour, he admitted. Lady Serafina herself commissioned the shard. She wanted House Draven destabilized, wanted you distracted and weakened. If the boy died, you'd go mad with grief. If you retaliated, you'd break the treaty, and the other houses would destroy you either way. He laughed bitterly. It was perfect. Except you found someone clever enough to remove it. How did you communicate with Valcour? Elena pressed. How did you report his condition? Blood letters. Encoded messages sent through the courier network. Hastings' eyes narrowed. But you knew that already. This whole thing was a trap. Yes, Victor said simply. And you walked right into it. Hastings moved suddenly, pulling a glass vial from his coat and smashing it against the floor. Black smoke billowed up, acrid and choking. Elena felt the bond scream a warning, felt Victor's arms around her, pulling her back. When the smoke cleared, Hastings was gone, but in his place, burned into the floorboards, was a message in Valcor's distinctive script: the mortal dies first, then the boy. Then you watch House Draven fall. Victor stared at the words, his fury a cold inferno in the bond. They know, Elena whispered. They know I removed the shard. They know about us. Yes. Victor's arms tightened around her. Which means they'll come tonight. Before I can present evidence to the council, before I can rally the other houses. He turned her to face him, his eyes burning. Elena, I need you to take Lucian and run. There's a safe house in Edinburgh, warded against. No, Elena's voice was firm. I'm not running, and neither is he. We fight. They'll send assassins. Entire bloodlines sworn to Valcor. You're mortal, Elena. I'm bonded to House Draven, she corrected. Which means I have the right to defend it, don't I? That's what you said. Blood law. Victor's expression was anguished. I can't lose you. Not now. Not when I've just found. He stopped, jaw clenching. Elena reached up, cupping his face. Then don't lose. We have evidence. We have the truth. We call the Night Council now. Force an emergency session before Valcor can silence us. They'll never arrive in time. Then we hold them off until they do. Elena felt the plan crystallizing. Lucian is healed. He's a full vampire now, isn't he? Can he fight? From the bed, Lucian sat up, his ancient eyes gleaming. I've had 63 years to study combat theory, waiting for a body that could execute it. Try me. Victor looked between them, his mortal love and his immortal son, both refusing to flee, both willing to stand against the storm. You're both insane, he said. Learned it from you, Elena replied. Despite everything, Victor smiled, fierce and wild and free. Then we make our stand. House Draven doesn't run. He pulled Elena close, pressing his forehead to hers. But when this is over, we're having a very serious discussion about your survival instincts. Looking forward to it, Elena breathed. Through the windows, she saw the sun setting over the moors. Night was falling, and with it, House Valcor's vengeance. Chapter 8. The siege of Thornmerithy came with the darkness. Elena felt them through the bond before she saw them, a cold pressure against her mind, like storm clouds gathering. Victor stiffened beside her, his hand finding hers instinctively. 12, he said quietly. No, 15. Valcor brought an entire war party. They stood in the great hall, the three of them forming a triangle. Victor had armed Elena with a silver dagger. It burns us, but it burns them too, and dressed Lucian in light armor that looked absurdly large on his small frame. The boy wore it with grim determination, a short sword in his hand. The council? Elena asked. Dispatched. Lord Casimir promised to come personally. Victor's jaw tightened. But he's 3 hours away. We need to survive until then. 3 hours. Elena tested the weight of the dagger. We can do 3 hours. The front doors exploded inward. Vampires poured through the entrance, warriors in House Valcor's colors, their eyes burning with bloodlust. They moved with inhuman speed, fanning out to surround them. The one in front was a woman, tall and elegant, with platinum hair and eyes like frozen sapphires. She wore armor of blackened steel, and power radiated from her like heat from a forge. Lady Serafina, Victor said, his voice cold. How predictable. Come to finish your failed assassination personally? Serafina smiled, showing fangs. Failed? Dear Victor, the assassination was never meant to succeed quickly. Slow suffering, watching your son die by inches, breaking your legendary control, that was always the goal. Her gaze slid to Elena. Though I admit, the mortal complication is unexpected. How did a human manage what our finest healers could not? Skill, Elena said flatly. And the advantage of actually caring whether he lived. Serafina's laugh was crystalline and cruel. Oh, she has spirit. I can see why you bonded her. Tell me, Victor, will you watch her die as slowly as you watched your son suffer? Victor's power exploded outward, and the temperature plummeted. You'll have to get through me first. Gladly, Serafina gestured, and her warriors attacked. Victor met them head-on, moving too fast for Elena's mortal eyes to track. She saw flashes, his hand through a vampire's chest, another warrior's head separating from his shoulders, black blood spraying across marble floors. But there were too many. 2 vampires broke through, rushing toward Elena. She remembered Victor's lessons: don't hesitate. Commit to the strike. Silver burns them, but it hurts you too. She slashed upward as the first reached her, and the blessed blade bit deep into his throat. He screamed, the sound inhuman, and stumbled back. Elena didn't wait, she followed through, driving the dagger into his heart. The vampire convulsed and went still, crumbling to ash. The second warrior grabbed her from behind, fangs descending toward her throat. Through the bond, she felt Victor's terror, felt him trying to reach her. Lucian appeared in a blur, his small sword piercing the vampire's side. "Don't touch her," the warrior backhanded him, sending the boy flying into the wall. Elena heard the crack of bones, felt Victor's anguish through the bond, and something primal took over. She grabbed the silver dagger and drove it into the warrior's eye. He died screaming. Elena ran to Lucian, who was already pulling himself upright, his broken ribs healing with supernatural speed. "You saved me," she gasped. "You saved me first," Lucian replied, his ancient eyes fierce. Fair trade. The battle raged around them. Victor fought like a demon, taking down 3 warriors for every one that got past him. But Serafina hung back, watching, waiting for an opening. She found it when Victor was engaged with 4 warriors simultaneously. Serafina moved, impossibly fast, and suddenly she was in front of Elena, one hand around her throat, lifting her off the ground. "Let's test that bond, shall we?" Serafina purred. "Let's see if Victor can maintain his focus while his mortal bleeds." Her free hand became claws, slashing across Elena's stomach. Pain exploded, hot and terrible. Through the bond, Elena felt Victor's scream, felt him tear through his opponents with mindless fury, desperate to reach her, but Serafina was faster. She dragged Elena toward the shattered doors, toward the darkness outside. "Victor," Serafina called, "choose. Chase me and save your pet human, or stay and protect your son. You can't do both." Elena saw Victor freeze, saw the impossible choice break across his face. Lucian was surrounded by 3 warriors, holding them off but barely. If Victor left, they'd overwhelm the boy. Through the blood bond, Elena felt Victor's heart shattering. "Go to Lucian," she thought desperately. "I'll be fine. Protect your son. I can't lose you, you won't." Elena forced conviction into the thought. "I'm harder to kill than I look. Trust me." For one terrible moment, Victor hesitated. Then he turned back toward Lucian, and Elena felt his anguish like a physical wound. Serafina laughed. "How touching. He chose the boy. That loyalty will make destroying you both so much sweeter." She dragged Elena into the night, into the gardens choked with thorns. Blood soaked Elena's dress from the stomach wound, and her vision blurred with pain. But her mind stayed clear, racing through possibilities. Serafina wanted her alive, at least for now. Wanted to use her as leverage, as bait. Which meant Elena had time. Not much. But enough. "You made a mistake," Elena gasped, as Serafina hauled her toward the iron gates. "Did I?" Serafina's grip tightened. "What mistake could I possibly have made, little mortal? You assumed I was helpless." Elena's hand, hidden in the folds of her skirt, gripped something cold and glass. "You assumed wrong." She smashed the vial she'd taken from the laboratory. "Holy water. Blessed by 3 different faiths, concentrated enough to burn vampire flesh like acid," Serafina shrieked, her grip releasing as smoke rose from her skin. Elena fell hard, her wound tearing wider, but she rolled away and came up with her silver dagger ready. "Clever," Serafina hissed, her beautiful face blistered and raw. But not clever enough. She lunged, and Elena knew she couldn't dodge in time. An arrow took Serafina through the shoulder, stopping her mid-leap. Elena spun to see figures emerging from the darkness, vampires in different colors, different house sigils. Leading them was an ancient vampire with silver hair and eyes like winter frost. "Lord Casimir," Serafina spat. "You're early. I rode ahead when I heard the attack had begun." Casimir's voice carried the weight of millennia. "Lady Serafina of House Valcour, you are accused of breaking the peace treaty, of attempted murder of a protected child, and of assault on a bonded mortal. You will stand before the Night Council and answer for these crimes." More vampires poured into the garden, warriors from other houses, enforcers of the ancient laws. They surrounded Serafina, weapons drawn. Inside the manor, Elena heard the fighting. Stop. Through the bond, she felt Victor's desperate rush toward her, felt his relief when he sensed she was still alive. He burst into the garden, Lucian at his side, both covered in black blood, but whole. His eyes found Elena, and the bond flooded with such fierce emotion it nearly knocked her breathless. "You're hurt," he said, his voice breaking as he reached her. His hands hovered over her torn stomach, afraid to touch. "I'll live," Elena managed. Holy water. Worked like a charm. Despite everything, Victor laughed, strangled and relieved. "You brilliant, terrifying woman. Casimir approached, his ancient gaze taking in the scene. Lord Draven, I see the intelligence you sent was accurate. House Valcour has violated the treaty. He looked at Serafina, now restrained by 4 house enforcers. The evidence? Victor pulled out the sealed case containing the cursed shard. This was embedded in my son's chest for 5 years, slowly killing him. It bears Valcour's blood signature. We also have Dr. Hastings' confession recorded before he fled. Casimir examined the shard, his expression darkening. This is monstrous. To torture a child this way. He turned to Serafina. What do you say to these charges? Serafina's smile was vicious even in defeat. That Victor Draven has grown soft. That he's bonded Immortal, risked everything for a failed turning, and shown weakness that will destroy House Draven eventually. She spat blood at Victor's feet. The council may punish me today, but you've already lost. She'll die, Victor. Mortals always do. And then you'll be alone again, for eternity, with nothing but memories of what you couldn't save. The words hit like daggers. And through the bond, Elena felt Victor's old fears rising, the terror that Serafina was right. That loving Immortal was just another way to suffer. Elena pushed herself upright, ignoring the pain, and walked to stand beside Victor. She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. Maybe mortals die, she said clearly. But we live first, fully, fiercely, without the luxury of forever making us cautious. She met Serafina's cold gaze. I'd rather have 50 years of being truly alive than 1,000 years of being too afraid to feel. Casimir's lips twitched. Well said, young one. To Victor, he said, your evidence is compelling. The council will convene tomorrow night. House Valcour will answer for these crimes. He gestured to his warriors. Take Lady Serafina to the holding chambers. And someone fetch a physician, the mortal needs medical attention. As they dragged Serafina away, she called back, this isn't over, Draven. Victor's arm wrapped around Elena's waist, supporting her weight. Yes, he said quietly, it is. Chapter 9. The weight of Victor. Eileen awoke to candlelight and the scent of medicinal herbs. She lay in her borrowed room in the West Wing, her stomach wrapped in clean bandages that smelled faintly of yarrow and comfrey. The wound throbbed with each breath, but the sharp agony had dulled to a manageable ache. Victor sat in the chair beside her bed, motionless as a statue, his eyes fixed on her face. He'd changed from his blood-soaked clothes into fresh black, but she could see the tension in every line of his body. How long was I asleep? She asked, her voice rough. 16 hours. His voice was carefully controlled. The physician said you were lucky. The wound was deep but missed vital organs. With rest and proper care, you'll heal completely. Elena pushed herself upright, ignoring the pull of stitches. Lucien? Unharmed, sleeping in his room. His bones healed within an hour. Victor's hands clenched on the armrests. He asked about you every time he woke. I told him you were resting. Something in his tone made Elena pause. Through the bond, she felt a roiling darkness, guilt, fear, and something that tasted like self-loathing. Victor, she said quietly. What's wrong? He was silent for a long moment. Then finally, I chose him over you. Elena blinked. Of course you did. He's your son. You were dying. Victor's voice cracked. Serafina was dragging you away, bleeding, and I chose to stay with Lucien instead of saving you. What kind of? He stopped, closing his eyes. I felt you through the bond, felt your pain, your fear, and I still turned away, because I told you to, Elena said firmly. Victor, look at me. He opened his eyes, and she saw the raw anguish, their centuries of loss compounded by the impossible choice she'd forced him to make. I told you to protect Lucien, she continued. I told you I'd be fine. And I handled Serafina myself, and Casimir arrived in time. You made the right choice. The right choice would have been to never put you in that position. Victor stood abruptly, pacing to the window. I should never have involved you in this war. Should never have bonded you, made you a target. Serafina was right, loving Immortal is just another way to suffer. The words stung, but Elena recognized them for what they were. Fear talking. Old wounds reopening. Come here, she said. Elena, come. Here. Victor returned to her bedside reluctantly, and Elena reached up to cup his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. Do you regret bonding me? She asked. No. Yes. I don't know. He pulled away, running his hands through his hair. I regret that you nearly died because of it. I regret that you will always be in danger as long as you're tied to House Draven. I regret that I'm selfish enough to want you anyway. Good, Elena said. Because I don't regret it at all. Victor stared at her. You were nearly killed. How can you not? Because I've never felt more alive. Elena swung her legs over the side of the bed, wincing at the movement. Before I came here, I was invisible, ruined. A cautionary tale about what happens to women who trust the wrong men. But here, with you and Lucien, I matter. My skills matter. My choices matter. She stood, swaying slightly, and Victor's hands shot out to steady her. You see me, Victor. Really? See me. Not as a scandal, or a servant, or a convenient solution to a problem, but as myself. His hands remained on her arms, his touch gentle despite his strength. I do see you. That's the problem. I see how extraordinary you are, how brave, how brilliant. And I know that eventually, time will take you from me. 30 years, 50, if we're lucky. Then you'll be gone, and I'll have centuries of missing you. Then we make those years count, Elena said. We don't waste time being afraid of the ending. We live fully in every moment we have. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not easy. Elena's hands found his chest, feeling the slow beat of his heart beneath her palms. I'm not asking you for forever, Victor. I'm asking you for now. For today and tomorrow and every day after until there are no more days. Isn't that enough? Victor's forehead dropped to rest against hers, and through the bond, Elena felt his defenses crumbling. It should be, he whispered. It should be more than enough, but I'm greedy. 700 years, and I still haven't learned to accept loss gracefully. Then don't accept it. Fight it. Elena's voice strengthened. You're one of the most powerful vampires in existence. If you want more time with me, then find a way. Research, experiment, use that brilliant mind of yours. But don't give up on us before we've even begun. Something shifted in Victor's expression, hope, fragile and tentative, breaking through the despair. You would consider turning? Becoming immortal? I don't know, Elena admitted honestly. Ask me again in 30 years, when I've lived a full mortal life, and know what I'd be giving up. But don't assume my answer will be no. Victor pulled back slightly, studying her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. You're remarkable. You know that? You've mentioned it. Elena smiled. Now kiss me, before I pass out from blood loss and ruin the moment. Victor's laugh was startled and genuine. The physician said you need rest. The physician isn't bonded to me. You are. You can feel that? I'm fine. Hurt, yes, but fine. Elena's hands slid up to his shoulders. And I've been wanting to do this since the moment you knelt before me to form the blood bond. Have you? Victor's voice dropped lower, his eyes darkening with something that wasn't quite hunger, but close. And what, exactly, have you been wanting? This, Elena breathed, and pulled him down to meet her. The kiss was gentle at first, careful of her injuries, tentative with newness. But then Victor's control shattered, and gentle became desperate. His arms wrapped around her, lifting her carefully to avoid her wound, and Elena melted into him. He was cold where she was warm, ancient where she was young, immortal where she was mortal. But through the bond, they fit together perfectly. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Victor rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you, he murmured. Probably not, Elena agreed, smiling. But you're stuck with me anyway. A knock at the door interrupted them. Victor set Elena back on the bed with infinite care before calling, Enter, Mrs. Calloway appeared, her expression carefully neutral, despite surely knowing what she'd interrupted. Begging your pardon, my lord, but Lord Casimir has requested your presence at the manor house. The Night Council has convened early. They're ready to pass judgment on House Valcour. Victor's jaw tightened. Tell them I'll be there within the hour. He also requested Miss Voss's presence, if she's well enough to travel. As the victim of the attack, her testimony will be heard. Elena stood, ignoring Victor's protest. I'm well enough. Help me dress? Mrs. Calloway nodded approvingly. I'll fetch something appropriate, miss. When the housekeeper left, Victor turned to Elena with concern. You don't have to do this. Your testimony isn't required for conviction. We have the Shard Hastings confession, witnesses to the attack. You can rest. I want to be there, Elena said firmly. Serafina tortured a child for 5 years. She tried to destroy your house, kill me, and break the peace treaty. I want to see her face when the council sentences her. Victor's smile was dark with approval. You have a vindictive streak, Elena Voss. Learned it from experience. Elena thought of her ex-fiancé, of the family that had destroyed her reputation. People who hurt others should face consequences. Real ones? Then we'll face her together. Victor offered his arm. Partner? Elena took it, feeling the bond pulse with shared purpose. Partner. As they prepared to leave for the council chambers, Elena caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman, looking back, was barely recognizable, dressed in fine borrowed clothes, marked with silver scars from a vampire's bite, standing beside an immortal lord as his equal. 6 weeks ago, she'd been ruined, desperate, invisible. Now, she was seen, valued, dangerous, and she was just getting started. Chapter 10. The choice between worlds. The Night Council convened in a manor house older than any cathedral Elena had ever seen. They arrived by carriage as the sun set, painting the Yorkshire sky in shades of blood and amber. Victor kept Elena close, his arm supporting her as they climbed the stone steps. Through the bond, she felt his tension, not fear, but the weight of ancient politics, of presenting his mortal lover before the most powerful vampires in existence. Lucien walked on her other side, dressed in formal attire that made him look like a prince from a Gothic fairy tale. His recovery had been miraculous. The removal of the shard had allowed his vampire nature to finally stabilize. He was still small, still frozen at 8 years old, but the suffering had left his eyes. In its place was something sharp and aware. Stay close to me, Victor murmured as they entered the great hall. The council is bound by law, but individual members may harbor grudges or ambitions. The hall was cavernous, lit by hundreds of candles that cast dancing shadows across vaulted ceilings. Vampires filled the space, lords and ladies of different houses, their power palpable in the air. At the far end, 7 thrones rose on a dais, and seated upon them were the eldest of their kind. Lord Casimir occupied the central throne, his silver hair gleaming in the candlelight. To his right sat a vampire woman with dark skin and eyes like molten gold, Lady Amara of House Kemet. Victor had explained, nearly as old as civilization itself. To his left, a pale vampire with black hair and a face like carved ice, Lord Constantine of House Romanov. The other 4 council members were equally ancient, equally terrifying. Casimir's voice rang out, silencing the assembly. The Night Council recognizes Lord Victor Draven of House Draven, his bonded mortal, Elena Voss, and his heir, Lucien Draven. Approach. They walked down the center aisle, and Elena felt every vampire's eyes upon her, curious, hostile, intrigued. She kept her spine straight, her head high, refusing to show weakness. When they reached the dais, Victor bowed with perfect formality. Elena and Lucien followed suit. Lord Draven, Casimir continued, you have brought grave charges against House Valcour. The council has reviewed your evidence, the cursed shard, the physician's confession, witness testimony from the attack. We have also interrogated Lady Serafina herself. His expression darkened. The charges are confirmed. House Valcour orchestrated a years-long conspiracy to murder your heir, destabilize your house, and provoke you into breaking the peace treaty. A murmur rippled through the assembled vampires. Bring forth the accused, Casimir commanded. Guards dragged Serafina forward in silver chains. Her platinum hair was disheveled, her armor stripped away, but her eyes still burned with defiance. When she saw Victor, she smiled. Enjoying your victory, Victor? She called. How long do you think it will last? Silence, Lady Amara said, her voice like distant thunder. You have been found guilty of high crimes against vampire law. The penalty is clear, death, Lord Constantine added coldly. Your house will be disbanded, your territories redistributed, your bloodline ended. This is our judgment. Serafina laughed wild and unhinged. Kill me then. But the game doesn't end. Victor has shown his weakness to every house in this room. He bonded Immortal. She turned her manic gaze on the council. A human woman, fragile and temporary, now tied to House Draven by blood law. How long before she becomes leverage? How long before every enemy he's made comes for her? Elena felt Victor tense beside her, felt his old fears rising again through the bond. The bond is recognized and protected under our laws, Casimir said firmly. Any vampire who harms Elena Voss harms House Draven directly. Any attack on her will be met with the full force of the council. Protected, Serafina scoffed. For how long? 30 years? 50? Then what? She dies of old age, and Victor mourns for centuries. Or her smile turned vicious. He offers her immortality, turns her into one of us, and condemns her to watch everyone she ever loved age and die while she stays frozen. Either way, he loses. Either way, she suffers. The words hit like physical blows. Elena felt Victor's anguish through the bond, felt him believing Serafina's poison, despite everything they'd said to each other. Lady Amara leaned forward, her golden eyes fixing on Elena. The vampire speaks cruel truths, mortal child. The bond you share with Lord Draven is sacred, but it does not change what you are. Human, temporary, a candle flame in the darkness of his eternity. Her voice softened slightly. Have you truly considered what you've chosen? Elena stepped forward, ignoring Victor's attempt to hold her back. She met the ancient vampire's gaze directly. I have considered it, she said clearly. I've thought about mortality and immortality, about the price of both. I've thought about what it means to love someone who will outlive me by millennia, and what it means to be loved in return despite that difference. And Constantine's icy voice cut through the hall. And I choose it anyway. Elena's voice rang with conviction. Because love isn't about how long it lasts. It's about what you do with the time you have. Victor gave his son 63 years of fighting against impossible odds. He gave me a chance when society had thrown me away. He sees value where others see only weakness. She looked at Victor, seeing the wonder in his eyes. If I have 30 years, or 50 years, or 100 years with him, I'll spend every one of them choosing him. And when my time runs out, she turned back to the council. Then we'll make that choice together. Not out of fear or desperation, but because we've lived fully and know what we want. Silence filled the great hall. Then Lady Amara smiled, the first genuine expression Elena had seen from any council member. Well spoken, child. You have the heart of a warrior, even if you were mortal flesh. The council recognizes the bond, Casimir declared. House Draven is under our protection, including all its members, immortal and mortal alike. He turned to Serafina. Your execution will be carried out at dawn. Have you any final words? Serafina's defiance crumbled. She looked at Victor, and for the first time, Elena saw something human beneath the monster. I loved someone once, she said quietly. A mortal like her. I refused to turn him, thought I was being noble by letting him live his natural span. I watched him age while I stayed young, watched him die in my arms, begging me to save him, and I couldn't because it was too late. Her voice broke. I've spent 3 centuries becoming what you see now, bitter, cruel, convinced that love between our kinds is poison. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll find a way to make it work. She met Elena's eyes. I hope you do. I hope you prove me wrong. Then she bowed her head, accepting her fate. The guards led her away, and Casimir dismissed the council. Vampires began filing out, their conversations, filling the hall with whispers about the mortal who'd defied tradition and the lord who'd chosen her. Victor pulled Elena aside, into a quiet alcove, away from prying eyes. Lucian tactfully wandered toward a group of young vampires his physical age, leaving them privacy. You didn't have to defend our bond so publicly, Victor said, his hands framing her face. You've made yourself the subject of every vampire's scrutiny now. They'll watch you, judge you, wait for you to fail. Let them watch, Elena said. I'm not going anywhere. Elena, his voice caught. Serafina was right about one thing. Eventually, you'll have to choose. Mortality or immortality. A human death or an endless life. And either choice carries impossible weight. I know. Elena covered his hands with hers. But that choice is years away. Maybe decades. We don't have to make it tonight. What if I want to make it tonight? Victor's eyes searched hers desperately. What if I want to offer you eternity right now, before anything else can take you from me? Elena's heart clenched. Victor, I could turn you. Tonight, you'd heal from your wounds completely, become stronger than any mortal, live long enough to see centuries pass. We'd have time, Elena, real time, not this desperate scramble against mortality. The offer hung between them, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Elena thought about it, truly considered it. Immortality, never aging, never dying, never watching Victor grieve her loss. She could stay with him, with Lucian, build a life that measured in centuries instead of years, but she'd also never see another sunrise, never taste food or feel warm summer rain, never have children of her own, never experience the fullness of human life, its joys and sorrows, its natural progression from youth to wisdom to rest. Ask me again, she said finally, when I'm old enough to know what I'm giving up, when I've lived a full human life and can make that choice with true understanding. She squeezed his hands. I'm 26, Victor. I haven't traveled the world, haven't built the life I wanted before it was stolen from me. If I turn now, I'll always wonder what I missed. Pain flickered across Victor's face. But beneath it, Elena felt something else through the bond: respect, understanding, love that put her needs before his fears. How long? He asked quietly. How long do I have you as you are? How long do you want me? Forever wouldn't be enough. Elena smiled, pulling him down to kiss her. Then we make the most of whatever time we get. Starting now. Victor kissed her back, deep and desperate, and through the bond, Elena felt his walls finally crumbling, his acceptance that love was worth the risk, that she was worth the eventual pain. When they finally broke apart, Lucien had returned, his expression knowing beyond his years. Are we going home? He asked. Victor looked at Elena, and she saw the question in his eyes, not just about the estate, but about what home meant now. Yes, she said, taking both their hands. We're going home. Together. The three of them walked out of the council chambers of Vampire Lord, his immortal son, and the mortal woman who'd chosen them both into a future uncertain but entirely their own.